things that I would like to speak about today is organizations wanting open communication in their system. Now we say that open communication has various aspects. It doesn't just happen like that. One of the critical aspects of open communication is giving and receiving feedback. I would suggest companies need to start focusing on that. Feedback is essential, has to be given, and yet there is a damage that happens to the organizational communication system if it is not given properly. So critical for all of us to actually handle how feedback is to be given. Two aspects of communication while feedback is to be given is how the giver, what are the statements that the giver is making, what are the statements that the receiver is making, what is the attitude that the giver of the feedback has, and what is the attitude of the receiver of the feedback has. These four things have to work in consonance. One of them doesn't work, the feedback process is incomplete. So let's look at the first one. What are the statements that the giver of a feedback has to make? And these are statements which he has to make. So a very basic statement can be, this feedback is for your growth. Please do not take it as a criticism of your effort. Let me repeat it. This feedback is for your growth. Please do not take it as a criticism of your work. Another statement could be, let's look at how we can add velocity to your performance. So one has to identify statements like these and keep on saying it. So the role of the giver of the feedback has to identify these statements and make those statements. The second thing that we have to look at is, what is the attitude of the giver of feedback at that point of time? Now you may come from कि अच्छा मुझे statement, I know the statement, now I can use it even though I may not mean it. What I am saying. Now that is where the trap is. If you do not mean what you are saying, the other person will pick it up and he will stop listening to you. So you actually got to mean it. Be authentic that you actually want to mean it. So use that statement which you actually want to say. Don't pick up the statements that I gave you, that I just suggested. Pick up the statement that works for you and then mean that statement. Afterwards, your job is then to listen to what the person says. And we'll talk about that in the subsequent videos. Now, what is the statement that the receiver of the feedback has to make so that the giver can be absolutely free to speak? So the receiver of the feedback has to say, and these are words, and I'm just suggesting, these are not true, these are not, just cast in stone. But these are some suggestive statements that the receiver can say. So he can say, I'm open to feedback and I know it is for my growth. Please be straight and objective with me. Difficult to say, but that is what has to be said. And while receiving the statement, he has to keep on maintaining the attitude of receiving it from the perspective that his growth depends on these parameters. So his current skill set can take him to a next level. But if he doesn't add to what the feedback has been given to him and add those aspects to his working style, he may get stopped at a certain level. So he has to keep that open attitude that I am listening for my own growth. And all the time during this feedback process, my request to everybody is that keep on restating the statements that you have identified. So the giver of the feedback has to keep on stating again and again the reason for the feedback, and the receiver has to continuously say how he is receiving it and why he is receiving it. And that, my friends, will be the first step towards creating an open communication in your organization. Very simple to do and practical tips. Thank you.